Welcome back to your favorite sports podcast here in St. Louis, the Lounatics. I'm Tyler, your host, along with my friend and co-host John. We are back and ready for action after missing a week with some craziness going on in both of our lives. John, did you pick out a beverage for the evening, or are you going water?
Water is technically a beverage. And yes, I went water. It is a beverage. It is something you drink. That is the English language, which is difficult for some people, but, you know, it is the English language.
Hey, I mean, Scott kept saying trial when he really meant trail for how long in a group chat. And then, Scott, I know you're listening, so there's your shout out.
What do you have? Something whiskey, probably Maker's Mark.
Actually, finishing off the bottle of Woodford.
Look at you.
You can't just leave, mostly empty bottles laying around. I'm trying to, clean things off. I had to make room, I had already picked up the bottle to replace it on the shelf of something new. So I'm like, well, might as well finish it off so that I put the new one up there.
I get it. You got to do what you got to do.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do. Speaking of, I feel like that's a perfect segue into the Blues right now.
A team that is doing what they have to do, more so than some other teams that we follow. So
yes,
the Blues gave offers to, Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway. And
Broberg and Holloway.
Edmonton decided not to match. So, yay. Making moves.
So, again, a little bit of some backstory here, but I mean, Broberg and Holloway are both young guys.
Hollywood.
Got it. Broberg and Holloway are both young guys, good prospects, look to contribute over the future. And I guess my question is how much do you expect them to contribute right away? I think Broberg really kind of forced his way into the lineup come the playoffs and that playoff run with Edmonton on their way to the Stanley Cup final. So I think, more high hopes for him contributing right away, more so than maybe Holloway. But I don't know if you have differing thoughts or
I mean,
how you see that playing out.
I don't know if I have differing thoughts. I do think Broberg probably has the higher upside. And I do think that, I don't know. I mean, based on the amounts that we, offered them, Broberg is the one that you should be more excited about because he's the one who cost more and that we gave up more to get. So we had to send a second round pick as compensation to Edmonton for Broberg, had to send a third round for Holloway. So clearly those are different, right? One of them is more than the other. And I do think Broberg also kind of fits in an area that we really need, being a defenseman. I think that that's another reason why I kind of expect a little bit more from him, and I'm hopeful for more from him. But Holloway also is very experienced. I mean, I know they both have a fair amount of playoff experience for the age that they are, something that similar age guys for the Blues don't have. Granted, that's because we haven't been that good for a few years. But that's also something that I think shouldn't be understated. I think they both have 80, 90 games in the NHL too. So a full season's worth already.
So obviously Broberg being a defenseman, then you've got Holloway as a center. So with Broberg kind of rolling into the defenseman side of things in that role, who's the odd man left out now?
Oh, I don't know. I don't have an answer to that.
Because you also, I was because it gets tough, right? Because your top line theoretically would be Parayko and Nick Leddy again.
Probably. I can't disagree with that.
But I mean, we have 9-10 guys competing for 7 spots.
I mean, you have to imagine that Broberg gets one of those spots. You're not giving that up. Yeah.
Oh, Broberg's gonna. You're not
Right.
paying that much money
Right.
for him to not play. So like he's playing. So who ends up the odd man out? I also feel like this has to signal that Torrey Krug's going to be out this year on LTIR.
Yeah. Krug is
They haven't outright said it with his ankle injury and the arthritic stuff he's got going on.
right.
They have not said, "Hey, he's not playing." They said he was working to see if he could play. But I feel like if with the Broberg deal, it's we don't think he's playing.
Yeah, I mean, Krug was the one who I most kind of thought. There's other guys that are kind of on the bubble there, but I think Krug is probably the most likely.
Yeah, I think he's for sure probably not. I think Falk is going to be on your second line as far as that side of things goes, right? But again, I'm not sure where the rest of the guys are going to fall. Kessel really impressed later in the year. Perunovic he plays well, but he's really an offensive kind of one-trick pony. His defense really hasn't come along the way that we had hoped it would. And then you also signed Pierre-Olivier Joseph.
Perunovic is the other one who I think is a strong candidate to be the odd man out. I think those are kind of the two obvious answers, right? For various reasons for both of them. But who knows? One thing that is kind of interesting to me, those are the two shortest defensemen on the roster, for whatever that's worth. They're the two smallest guys. Well, no, this other guy's 176, Leo Loof. 6'2", 176. Do you remember when you looked like that?
Yeah, that would have been last time I was that weight would have been freshman year of college.
There you go.
It's been 15. A few years.
14, depending if it was beginning or end.
Yes, I was right around there pretty much the whole freshman year of college.
College food.
So, it was the food that got me. Had nothing to do with anything
Totally
else.
The food. Totally the food.
So, looking at the Blues roster right now, do you feel better or worse about the team than you did last year?
So it's funny. Okay, so I have the roster up here on my other screen, which is funny that you say that. I think I feel slightly better than last year. I don't think I feel hugely better. But I don't know. The problem was I was really pessimistic last year. And
yeah, you were.
So we played a lot of young guys. They got a lot of experience. Doesn't take much to be better as you're developing. So I don't know. What about you?
I think partially because of what you just said, but overall I think it's better. I think there were some players that we were banking on potentially having upside that didn't pan out the way that we had hoped last year. And then you couple that with, again, starting a lot of young guys. We just weren't ready. The Joseph brothers we've signed. Then you've got now Holloway, right? And I think Holloway gives you an additional depth at the center position. Broberg obviously is an upgrade for your bottom six, your defensive lines. My guess is my current assumption, and I say assumption because I really don't know for sure, but I would think you're going to see Broberg and Falk on the second line.
Do you think
to start the year
Holloway's going to play more left wing or more center? Because I think historically he's been more on the left wing, but I know he's played center. I don't know where he's going to find more opportunity, though.
Where who would you put ahead of him at center though? I mean, like again, we're talking third,
Well,
fourth
yeah,
line
that's what I
here.
mean. But do you think he's going to be third, fourth line left wing or third, fourth line center? I'm guessing you think center.
I think there's a good chance it's going to be center, but now I could be wrong, and it really is going to depend on how people line up.
Right.
Robert Thomas is your
Right.
top line center, right? That's without question. Um, your second line center, I don't know who that is right now.
Right.
It can't be Braden Shen again. I like Braden Shen as a captain, whatever, but he can't be your second line center. I really think Holloway may be your second or third line center. Um, but I could be
Well,
again. It's going to depend on how some of these guys kind of show up and play. I mean, you also have Zach Bolduc, who was playing more outside, was
right.
playing on the outside last year. But if he takes some big step forwards, he's technically
Right.
a center. He's come
Right.
up as a center, so like Bolduc could
Well,
make that jump
and
too.
the
It's
other
hard to
thing that I
say.
think you kind of have to weigh too is, is it better to have your best players all out on the ice as much as possible versus separating them out, right? So like, if he is better as a left winger, if we need him more in center, like if we can get him around better players on a higher line by playing him at center, like that's probably better for the team.
Yeah, but I mean, like you could also make the argument like if Bucci plays on the right with Robert Thomas in the middle, and Holiday it fits in well with their play styles, and you slot him into the left, right? If it's working and it's gelling, you put the guys where they mesh too. It's not all just about talent. Some of it's about how well they play together. Um, and realistically, I will stick by this for a while. I think Kyrou really fits better as a second line guy because there's not very many second lines that he's going to go against that are going to be able to shut his speed down.
That's a pretty compelling argument. I like it. And I think that brings to another good point, right? It's about creating mismatches, right? All sports, it's about creating mismatches as much as possible. And that's exactly why I think you've got a really good point there, because your first line defenders are going to be, better skilled or better athletes, right? So you have to put Kyrou in these situations where his one really good elite skill, his speed, can be taken advantage of.
Yeah. So again, TBD, but in my mind, I think Bucci, Robert Thomas, and a third will be your top line. And I think you really need to find a way to put Kyrou on the second line to create mismatches.
I don't hate it.
We'll see. But again, really what this comes down to, me looking at the team, I think the team is better because you have the experience these young guys got throughout the season last year. Coupled with, I think there's some people with more solidified type positions. You think about your fourth line being the bruisers and the beaters, and you really solidified that fourth line at the end of last year. So really, it's to a point where okay, we just got to figure out who our top 9 are, offensively, and kind of go from there and figure out how the lines are going to work. Again, I am higher on, like right this instant, on the Blues than I was at this point last year. Now, that's just initial feeling. That's not me saying, oh, I think they're going to have a better season, but I think they are going to look better.
That means that you're willing to put the over-under for their points at like 94.5, right? 95.5 maybe?
Did you not hear me?
I'm just saying.
I saw the look on your face.
That's how you felt a year ago. So, I mean, that means that you have to bet at least that.
Give me the preseason before I decide what I think they're actually going to do.
I'll do that.
Because, like I said, at this point, prior to the preseason, I feel better about what we have than what I did last year before the preseason.
Well, let me ask you this. Speaking of teams that have made a lot of transactions lately and how you feel about what we have, St. Louis City has made a bunch of transactions. I think at least one since the last time we've talked about them, because we've been on bit of a break with the League's Cup with covering them, and that's, everyone's favorite redhead, Tim Parker, being sent with a bunch of Garber bucks in return for Henry Kessler from New England. In addition to that, this summer, of course, Cedric Toyshirt came in, Marcel Hartel came in, new left back Giannis Horn came in, probably going to play this weekend.
Horn, I don't think was on
so
last
either.
time.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And
That's
then
another new one.
And then of course JGR. Oh, and Simon Betcher came in on loan. We may have caught him. So that's like what, 6 new players, almost 5 of whom, 4 at least, are going to be almost certainly starters. Could make a case for the 5th or 6th depending on fitness and rotation and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's real easy right off the bat. I would say 5 of those guys are starters.
Toyshirt, Hartel,
I think
Horn, Kessler.
Toyshirt, Hartel, Betcher, Kessler, and
you think Betcher's a starter when Klaus is back?
Yeah. Currently,
well, yeah, I mean, you can't really take him out. He played very well, and so I think. Okay, so kind of to give like a little backdrop and reach back in the old memory here, you and I had said beforehand that we weren't really going to cover results for the tournament, but we were going to talk about the new guys and kind of how they looked. Betcher looked really good. Looked really good in the press.
Yeah, he did. He looked good in the press. He played great hold-up play, which is exactly what you need with guys like Toyshirt and Hartel underneath.
I thought Hartel looked like the real deal. He made some really great runs, did some pretty ridiculous things with the ball too during the tournament. I think Toyshirt looked at times really good and at times not as good as he thinks he is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I honestly, the one thing that really struck me and that I think bothers me a little bit, and I get it based on where they've played, is I want to see Hartel play in the Central more than I want to see Toyshirt play in the Central.
I want the ball to find Hartel in the center, and then he can distribute it back out, basically, based on whatever is going on the wings. I do think Toyshirt found some really good runs, but I think at least in this tournament, especially from the Mexican teams, I think the defending surprised him a little bit with how good it was. And Liga MX teams in general are not good at defending. I mean, Club America will give some grace to, but I was really surprised by the level of defending from FC Juarez. That one really tall center back that they had was really fast. It was mostly him. And their goalkeeper was hilarious. I was digging their goalkeeper's mind games. That had me cracking up.
The other big thing I noticed with these guys, these 3 coming in, and the other good and bad, right? One of the things is that we lose a lot of width because Hartel really comes in
a lot,
on the left side, which is okay because Reed pushes up in that space, or was pushing up into that space. I think Horn should be a solid step above Reed. And if that's the case, I think that's going to solidify that and make it easier for Hartel to cut in. But the thing is that I really loved seeing was how much freer and much more efficient and effective Leuven was.
Well, and it's not just how much freer.
It was like a weight was lifted off his shoulders to be the guy who had to make everything happen. It was, I can get the ball, do my thing, and lay it off, and feel
trust.
okay about
like you can tell Leuven is already feeling trust, and it helps that he knows Hartel and he knows Toyshirt. Like he has,
they were all 3 on the U21 German team.
Like they have experience playing together. But no, you can tell when watching Leuven play that he is feeling not as stressed. He's not feeling like it all has to be on him all the time. Which even with Klaus, like I don't think. Like early in the year, I don't think Klaus was alleviating any of that pressure off of Leuven, right? And I feel like Toyshirt and Hartel and Betcher too are all doing that. And I think part of that is because they all make really good runs into the box. All 3 of those guys make really good runs, and you can see like when you're watching, you can see them make eye contact together, basically, or point, and like immediately Leuven's playing that ball into the space that they want it.
It was the goal Toyshirt had
Oh, that
against
was sick.
Club
That was
America.
awesome.
When you saw him and Leuven make eye contact, and immediately Leuven put the ball exactly where Toyshirt was
I
going.
really want to go find that clip, and I don't know which song like would do this, but if you slowed that clip down while the ball was like when Leuven kicks the ball for Toyshirt or for Hartle to run on. But are you talking about Toyshirt's goal or Hartle's goal?
It was
Hartle had.
Hartle that did that.
I'm thinking of Hartle's goal right now, but they both had. I think Leuven assisted on both. But on Hartle's goal, if you slow that clip down and have like the right overlay where the beat drops right when it like the ball drops in front of them, like that would go so hard. That would go so hard. Like I could just like watch that on my way into work every day, and then like go in and be the world's best pharmacist. Instead, I have to make do with
So
nothing.
yeah, so I think again, I think they all looked good. I think Leuven looks like, and I think the only other time that I've seen Leuven play that free offensively when he's laid the ball off, the only other two players this year that I really felt that he's done that with, Indy some, but really it's been Alm and Celio were the two that I've seen when he's laid the ball off prior to these guys getting here, that you felt like Klaus was laying the ball off and he looked confident, like, I'm going to lay the ball off and I'm not afraid that you're just going to immediately kick it into a defender's shins.
Yeah, no, I would 100% agree with that. And I meant to mention also, you talked about Horn being a step up from Reed, who obviously was in somewhat, not really so much of a battle, but had kind of stolen that left back spot from Arcanic, who we sent out also to Minnesota, I believe. So like that's another transaction that occurred. Lutz has been wheeling and dealing.
We moved. So we moved Parker. We moved Marcanic. We moved Big Sam.
AZ.
We moved AZ Jackson.
Team looks different.
I mean, we have been. It is a completely different team, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because the team we had last year was an expansion team, right? We know that, and they overperformed.
Well, and it's not.
But because of that, we expected more from them coming into this year, and then underperformed the expectations. Right. The injuries definitely played a toll into that. But there wasn't any major changes.
And why would you make changes after having that year, right? But also, I do think I was going to talk about the injuries, right? We were doing pretty well. We were right in it before the injuries really started to pile up. And I think that's kind of the other thing too, especially over the last few weeks, is, Klaus and Alm are still out. Ostrak and Celio gone for the rest of the year, right? Nielsen has been out. Like those things, like they definitely changed the team. And I mean, Durkin came in this year, but replaced Blom, like completely jumped over Blom, who, has not had a great summer and had some situations during Leagues Cup that did not look the best. And the window's closed for us now. He could still be sent out, but I don't think he probably has much of a future with the team, which saddens me because he's one of my favorite players. But I mean, I think the avenue is still there, because I think Hack is willing to let guys come in and do things, but Blum has definitely seemed like he is not. I don't want to say not interested in giving it, but like it seems like it's over from his side, I guess, is maybe the best way to say it.
Yeah, I don't see Blom currently at current state. I don't see where he fits in, and it's not to say that Blom's a bad player, but Durkin has outplayed him, and Durkin really, honestly, is the engine that makes our team go right now, all season. And you look at the team, and it's where do you put Blom especially with these new guys we've brought in, and then if Alm gets healthy, you can't not have Alm in the lineup. The guy's a complete game changer for our squad.
Well, and that. I mean, because you could make the case if Blom had taken a step forward with his passing, you could have made a case that Durkin should be playing at like right wing, right mid, right? You could have made that case, especially in the absence of Alm. But
Or even put Durkin at center. We've seen him at center back. He plays
Yeah,
well with the
yeah.
injuries we've had. If Blom had
Well, and
truly taken a
Blom can
solid step
play
forward,
center back too. Blom can play right back, which not like with Thomas Totland, right? Like Blom's not going to play right back there, but Blom can do those things too. But I don't know. The team does look different, very very fast. You know, and it's taken a little bit of adjusting, but that's sports, and that's especially soccer. That's why, like on my soccer jerseys, I never get names because soccer teams change fast, and
I think I think looking at the team, the other big change you said. I know you said they play fast. One, they're a lot faster on the counterattack, but and not necessarily like coming at you faster, much faster
yes,
with their decisions, and they're much more confident in possession of the
yes,
ball. You don't see them when they're in possession of the ball all of a sudden like players looking like
right,
they're freaking out, right? And we talked about it last year in Leagues Cup when Celio came on and looked like the only guy who belonged against Club America. Well, he was the only guy who was comfortable
right.
with the ball at his feet.
Which
Well, now this year we have multiple guys who are very comfortable and confident in their skills. And yeah, I can beat you. And I know we said we didn't make wholesale, any major changes in the offseason, but we all know that Lutz was after
yep,
Teuscher in the offseason before the season started, but they wanted a stupid high fee for him to come. And Lutz is like, cool, forget that. I'll just sign him when he's
right,
free in the
right. Which
summer
is what you
window.
want, like
Sadly, I
because if he had
now
not done
looking,
that, we would not have gotten Hartle.
you wanted to save
Like
the
like
money.
saving that money is what got us
Yep.
Hartle. Like let's call it what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Two more things that I really wanted to say. I know we weren't going to really talk about results, but you mentioned last year's Club America game, and I do think that what's important about that is we looked like we could compete with Club America this year. I mean, they were definitely the better team. Like they're just better. There's nothing wrong with that. They are the top team on this continent for a reason. But like they didn't blow us out like they did last year, right? Where, you know, they just dominated us and only one person looked even remotely up for that game, which was Celio. And so I did like that. It does give me hope for the rest of this season. And I think the team is, has been feeling good. I'm excited to watch them play Portland this weekend. They've got to win, I think, 7 of their last 9 games to even have a chance at the playoffs. So it's going to be really tight. But honestly, if they don't make the playoffs, but say they win 5 or 6 of the last 9, I'm gonna call that like I'm gonna feel okay about that. Like after the way the summer went, like to close it out on a high note like that, like I would feel really good about that.
If we beat the crap out of
Oh, I
KC
feel
the
really
last
good
game of
about
the year,
that.
I'm going to call
I
it a
would feel
win.
really good about that. The other thing I wanted to say is the only new player who we did not talk very much about, but who we did see is JGR. I don't really have anything to say
Mm-hmm.
good or bad about him, which is probably a good thing for a defensive oriented player. Um, you know, the I don't even think that was entirely him. He did make some pretty physical tackles, which I liked. Um, but really, I just think the ball didn't really find him, which could just be because he's covering, his area well.
Yeah, and I think I thought he looked fine. There was nothing alarming there. Um, the other thing that I wanted to mention is two of those guys we've talked about, Betcher and Horn, are
Yes.
here on
Oh,
loan.
good call. Yeah, important to say.
So Toy Shirt, Hartle, JGR, like
Right.
there are guys. That's it. Same with
Yeah.
Kessler, which we haven't seen yet because he
He was
can't
cup
play. He's
tied.
not eligible to
Yeah.
play till this weekend. Yep.
Dude's social media is hilarious. By the
But
way, if you don't follow him on Twitter, you have to follow him on Twitter. He's got a very dry sense of humor, but I really appreciate it.
I'll have to look him up. I follow most of the people on Instagram, but you don't get near as much funny stuff on Instagram. Uh, so anyway, but Horn I know has the option to buy.
Betcher does as well.
So for I didn't know if Betcher did. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with how soccer loans work, I know we've talked about it some before on here, but instead of just outright trading for a player, you can pay the other team to borrow their player. But in those contracts, you can sometimes add in clauses where you can buy the player's full contract from the club. And we have the option to buy both of those players' full contracts. I don't think we buy Betcher's contract unless we move Klaus, though.
I think they do. I think he's already paid off the loan. I think that, I mean, granted, he could drop off a lot, right? You still have 10 months on his loan, right? Rest of this season and the first half of next season. But no, I think they probably do exercise that option. And I don't even think it necessarily requires selling Klaus. It depends on what he's on. I don't know what his wages were at. I'm going to look it up now.
And the only reason I say that is because I just don't think you can pay Klaus as a DP, as a designated player, to potentially be your number 2 striker or your number 3 striker, depending on where you put Toyshirt and Hartle.
Well, I mean, don't forget, there was a period of time this spring when Sam was starting above Klaus because Sam was performing and Klaus was not. And that, was very short-lived. But, I mean, I think Lutz has made it clear that he does not mind that. And granted, that was under Carnell and not Hackworth, but I don't think they necessarily have a problem with that. I thought Transfermarkt had his contact or his contract info, but I don't see it. I think they probably.
I was about to say it has his contact info.
You can just message him, right? I think we probably will be able to afford him, and I think he's God, he's 25 already. Wow, I mean that makes sense, but.
Well, him and Johnny Klein were in SLU together.
Well, and it blows my mind that Johnny Klein is that age too, because they're both older, I think, than Indy and Thor and Akil. Maybe not Akil. Indy, I think, was a couple years younger than him. I think he was playing up an age group when he was playing in that U17 World Cup with Akil and Sargent. So I don't know. I could easily see them doing that. I mean, you can find a place for a guy that's that aggressive in the press. Like you can find a role for him if he's going to be that energetic in it. And there's going to be other guys leave too. Like that's the thing, right? Guys leave every window.
You can always move guys, and that's just it. But I really feel like in my mind, just because of what we're paying him, I think Klaus would be that guy.
Well, think about this though. It's actually more about Glover than it is to Klaus. Than Klaus for me, right? Because you can still start Klaus and Toyshirt in a 4-4-2, right? And then bring on Betcher for either one of them. Like he could very easily just be third striker. My more concern is like, how do we start ramping Glover up? And I know that like the team is trying to play down the expectations for Glover and all of that. And I know he's only 17. But I mean, if you think about the game the way that I think Lutz thinks about the game, right? Development for Glover is going to be high on his priority list over the next 2 years. So I don't know. That's just my thought. But I think they execute Betcher. Just on what we've already seen, I think he's shown that it's going to probably work out. Obviously a lot can change over the next year, but it's looking like a good deal.
Yeah. All right. There's been rumors out there, and I don't think there's any true substance to them. But my fun last question on St. Louis City before we move on is, what do you think the percentage chance that St. Louis City brings in Josh Sargent?
I think it's pretty low. I especially for the fee that Norwich has reportedly asked for. I think Cincinnati trying to make that offer makes a little bit more sense because Cincinnati's the other team that was really supposedly in on him. And it's possible that Cincinnati was more in on him than we were. And that they, we got kind of bunched into that because we own his MLS rights, essentially. That being said, I don't think Lutz sells those rights cheaply. I think it blows any other number out of the water because of what bringing Josh Sargent to St. Louis would mean a lot. Like so much that I can't even like really describe how much like the fans of this team would lose their mind if Josh Sargent came home to play for City.
Oh yeah.
And so, and like, what is it? Royce and Hartle, have the record for the selling of the rights between MLS teams at like 350K GAM, right? And I'm just saying, like, I don't think you should sell Sargent's rights, especially at the age that he is, for less than $1 million. And like, I know that that's like wild.
Oh, I'm thinking like 1.5 to 2 mil. Yeah.
And I know that that's ridiculous and whatever,
but because of who he is and because of what he means to this city,
he's worth
much more to us than he is
even if
else.
It wasn't like not even just like from a sporting perspective, like you said, like the branding perspective, the all the other parts of it, like the local kid making it and being big and like coming back and all that. That a number so high that they shouldn't even call, basically. Like, hold those rights until he's willing to come here. And I think he is willing to come here. I don't even think that that's like he's said that I think that he wants to play for St. Louis at some point. It's just right now he's, young and still playing in Europe and not done with that part yet.
Yeah. Realistically, I think if he plays for St. Louis City, it's going to be 3 to 5 years.
I think I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the guys come back after 26. Like that, like kind of older group of the men's national team right now. And I would love it for a lot of them to come play in the U.S. After the World Cup. And I am very excited to watch how this team plays with Pochettino as the coach. We're not going to like derail this episode to talk about that, but I think that this team is about to get a lot more exciting with Mauricio Pochettino.
You mean like if they have a coach who actually holds people accountable to do their jobs?
And not only that, but his style really fits like our team's strengths. I am really worried about Tyler Adams' hamstrings. Like, they're already practically non-existent. We're going to do some theoretical, develop some new surgeries that have never been practiced before to give him some new hammies. But I mean, we got to do what we got to do to keep him out on the field.
I just, all I want is to see Tyler Adams score another banger in the World Cup like he did against Mexico.
I mean, wasn't that the World Cup? Isn't that our World Cup, right?
It's pretty much our World Cup.
Oh God.
So we've just talked so much about Army and Lutz and all these great moves they've made and how active they've been and trying to reshape their teams. Army in rebuild mode, Lutz in trying to build a team mode. Then you have the wonderful John Mozeliak.
Okay, well, let's start with 3 weeks ago.
And I don't want to like take a hard stab at the trade deadline. That's actually what I was going to bring up was
how did you feel at the trade deadline?
I thought he did as well as he could have for where we were at the trade deadline.
I would,
because you knew he wasn't going to give up enough stuff to get one of the young studs, and he got, especially with Eric Fetty, a pitcher who is a solid number 3 pitcher. He's like a 2B pitcher, 3A to 2B pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is, like, since the deadline, we have been really bad. And maybe even a little bit before that. But
right after the deadline, after the Fam Slam, we kind of saw a jolt of energy in the team.
Yeah.
And then pretty much right after we recorded, it's been hot garbage.
Well, we had the 5-game losing streak.
Now.
And I'm trying to. Yeah.
Really, that's what derailed us. And we're, we played Tampa Bay, and we played Tampa Bay pretty well. And I thought maybe that was going to be a turning point for us. I was there at the game to see Victor Scott's first career home run.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, things. I really thought the Tampa Bay series would be a turning point, and it
So
definitely
of
was
our
not.
last 8 series, we've lost 5 of them. We've won 2, and then we split with the Royals, a 2-game set. So I don't know. The team has been rough this month. It's not the time you want to start losing games, right? Before tonight's games, we were 5 games out of the wild card spot, 3 games, I think, under 500. So I don't know.
I thought we were 2 and now
Oh,
we're
that may
3.
be roughly 2 or 3. Yeah, same ballpark. You know,
Because we lost
we
again
called
today.
up Walker a week ago, and then optioned him back to Memphis again today. So there goes another option, which means it's even less likely that we call him up, in the futures for a week of playing. We straight up DFA'd Brandon Crawford today, probably what we should have led with, because they made such a big deal about signing him for leadership in the off season, and then they played him a ridiculous amount in the spring, even though Wynn was balling out.
I don't feel like we played him a ridiculous amount. I think they played him like once a week.
Yeah, it felt like it was more than that. It felt like it was every 4 games to me. And maybe it was just once a week, but it felt like it was more than that to me.
Like going into like the 1st of June, he had like 19 at bats.
Really? Huh. It felt like it was
Yeah.
so much more than that to me.
The problem is that they were giving him starts in the middle. Like Mason Wynn was on a crazy hit streak, and then they decided to sit him. It's like, no, if your guy's hot, like super hot. And it'd be one thing if it was like hey, we have like a late night and we're cutting into a day game. Like that's not the case. And then it's not even like they actually gave him the day off, because they'd end up inserting him into the lineup in the 6th or 7th inning to pinch hit for Crawford, and he'd go in and stay on whatever. And it's like, why do we?
Yeah, Crawford only has 71 ABs on the year. So, yeah. I mean, Victor Scott has more than that. like Victor Scott has more than that.
And they may have about the same amount of hits, though.
Roughly. Victor Scott has 33 and Crawford has 28. Scott's average is substantially. Oh, wait, no, wait. That was games played. Hold up. No, they have the exact same number of hits. They have 12. 12 hits. 12 hits.
Nailed it. I don't know. I was just being a smartass, but now
Yeah. Which, I mean,
so
it's just, what are we doing?
And all but like one of those have come since his last call up for Victor Scott.
Right. Sitting him down was definitely the right move at the time. That's one of the things that I think the Cardinals got right this year. Not like it was a hard decision to make with the way he was playing, right? But it just seems like we're not doing great on a lot of these moves, and it's beginning to get old, and it's making me ask the question. This is a legitimate question I was asking myself today while I was pitching, is, okay, we now have a losing season right now, right? We're looking at possibly 2 losing seasons in a row. Like, Mozeliak and Marmol should both be fired if that happens. Like, there's no question in my mind. Like, this is freaking St. Louis.
So, and it's been shared a lot in social media. Do you remember when Mozeliak fired Matheny?
Yep.
In his press conference, which said a 500 baseball team is not okay in St. Louis.
But it is okay when your guy is the coach, and I get it for Mozeliak, right? He doesn't want to fire Ali because then he's fired 3 managers in 5 years, right? And it's like, okay, well, you shouldn't have fired Schilt. Like, let's be clear about that. You should not have fired Schilt. And I get that Schilt should have been using more analytics, and you want to more modernize the operation and stuff. Okay, fine. But like, Schilt also got results, and you just disagreed with how he got them. And I mean, like
It's like when you're a math teacher, you got the answer right, but you didn't show every step of your homework, so you didn't get full
pretty
credit.
much, yeah. And it's like, okay, but the guys believed in Schultz, and I think we as the fans mostly bought into who Mike Schultz is, right? Like I felt better about him as the manager, and that he understood what it meant for Cardinals baseball more than I feel about Ollie. And I do think Ollie cares and whatnot. I think Ollie's problem is more of just media facing. I don't think he just comes across as well as you would like. And he has definitely made some comments that I've 100% agreed with and responded well to. Though, I'm tired of it. And I'm tired of both of them.
I think, no, I'm tired of both of them. I think look, if you didn't agree with Schilt, I get it, whatever, you move on. I think the biggest mess up in the hiring of managers process was not hiring Skip Schumacher to be your manager at that point.
Yeah. I mean,
because then you hired him to be a bench coach for you. Now, the reason you didn't, because Skip Schumacher, while he uses analytics, has a lot of Mike Schilt tendencies, right? So Mozeliak didn't want that. But you look at, and I said it last year, I'm saying it again this year, the biggest loss, we lost Yachty, and that hurts a lot, right? We lost Pujols, and again, those two guys had a ton of leadership 2 years ago. But you also lost Skip Schumacher as your bench coach.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like that. I still feel like that's incredibly understated. Yes, Miami's getting their ass handed to them this year. That's not because of Skip. But that's not because of Skip. They fired their GM, who they shouldn't have. Or she quit, technically, because they decided they were going to put somebody in place to question every move she made. But they
they've
fired
been
her.
Selling, and
and then they sold off most of their parts of the team, and the few parts they didn't.
And I mean, the team was losing when they sold.
I can't
the team was already losing when they sold, but
they sold in the offseason, though.
A little bit, but they didn't fully sell out until the deadline. But
they sold some, and then the injuries, really and then they sold the rest of it.
I don't even know who I would say to replace him with, though, with either of them. I don't have answers to that.
Oh, it's really easy. Get rid of Ollie and hire Schumacher, because he's not going to be in Miami after this year
too. If you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Maybe that was the plan all along. The Mozeliak thing is I think what's his name, Keimblum or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, because I've never heard it said, but it's spelled Chaim. But I think you're close to it, because I remember thinking that it's pronounced not the way I expected.
Either way, I think he's been brought in to kind of be the heir apparent to Mozeliak. I just don't know if he's the right guy.
Wasn't he really involved with the Red Sox build?
He was. I think really what could set him over the edge is if he hired you and me to help run things for them. I think that would definitely push them over the edge.
He
pushed them over the top.
So he was with the Rays from 2005 to 2020, and then was chief baseball officer for the Red Sox from 2020 to 2023. So, anyway.
Yeah, but I agree. Right? Ollie, I know who I'd want to replace Ollie with. It's the Mozeliak. I don't know. I don't know who's out there. Whoever they gets the job obviously needs to hire you and me on to help run things. But outside of that, I don't know what else to do.
Well, the good news is that they should have a better record than last year, right? They have 37-ish games left. They only need to win 10 more to match last year. So Should be better.
Here's what I want to. This is all you need to know about this season. The Chicago White Sox are on pace to lose 124 games this year. We couldn't beat that team in a series.
No, we could not.
That's all you need to know.
The White Sox are 43 and a half games back.
Mm-hmm. And we could not beat them in a series.
It's the only team that's already eliminated from the postseason. We could not beat them.
And we did not win the series. I think we got swept against them.
I don't remember. I remember being very mad, though, because they were already really bad then. Let me go here.
I'll pull it up. You're fine.
Full schedule. White Sox. Oh, I'm in the second half. That's why. First half. White Sox.
But I mean,
we won the first game.
So bad,
and they won the second too.
Oh, we beat them for one game. Damn. Impressive.
We are so good at baseball.
Good.
I'm just sad.
Like, it's just, you want to be depressed, you look at that, right? It's just, what do you expect, right? And again, it comes back to, right, we had 3 games against them for the year, right? But just, they are on pace to lose 124 games. You thought our season last year was bad? Can you imagine going through a season losing 124 games? It feels like we're going to lose that many.
And to be fair, like, the White Sox have also been bad for a couple of years. Like, this was clearly coming. Maybe not quite at the level that it is, right? But, like, we knew that they were headed off the rails. So, anyway.
Oh, here's a fun thing that happened to me recently, and was requested to have a shout out in the episode. Whether or not they listen to this, we'll see. But I got a package in the mail, and it came with a little box, and inside the little box had 2 golf balls. They were blue golf balls.
Blue balls.
So blue ball, 2 blue balls. And they were labeled Shweddy balls. One was Shweddy ball 1, like it's like Shweddy L and Shweddy R instead of 1 and 2.
I get it.
Yeah, and then on like the putting line, where there's like those putting line, there's 2 little arrows, and then in between the arrows it says "stroke it."
Okay.
Do you want to take a guess at who sent those to me?
I mean, literally anyone that has ever met you would know that you would find that funny. My guess would be Matley, but he's not really the golf type, but it's just more his humor.
It was sent to me by my mother.
That makes sense. She also understands your humor. I don't know why that applies to this podcast today, but it is a wonderful shout out, and I'm glad you shared it.
It's she gave me a lot of crap. Like, I'm sending you a package, and you're going to get it, and it deserves a shout out on the podcast. So before I forget,
that's fair.
Now I'm going to give her crap when she doesn't hear the shout out.
I'm sure there will be a Facebook post.
She'd never call me out for things I've said on here.
Never.
Right. I don't know. I mean, again, getting back to the Cardinals, looking at the teams, I think realistically you have 2 teams that are very similar, what should be similar situations, and 1 team that's very different. St. Louis City is a very different team. St. Louis City SC is a new team. They're building, they're slowly trying to grow, and they're trying to do it the right way to fit their style and their scheme. The Blues and the Cardinals are established professional sports teams that have both made playoff runs recently, and how they've been managed since those playoff runs is so vastly different. Now, on the flip side, part of me wonders, would the Blues be better off currently if they had Mo running the team, right? Because Mo loves to just try to keep certain people around. So maybe we don't let said defenseman leave, who's the best defenseman in the league. On the flip side, does he also hold on to some other guys, Ryan O'Reilly and others, that we needed to part ways with as they were starting to hit that decline? So are you really better? Are you not? It's hard to say. But at the end of the day, for me, I'm going to prefer Army's method and Doug Armstrong over Mo, because at least he's being aggressive. He's getting things. The one thing I will say, though, when you compare them, is that Armstrong has an advantage in making things happen, and it's a little something called a salary cap, because it means other teams also have to be playing the game.
Like baseball,
right? You can't just throw more money at everyone.
Baseball has a salary cap, but it's a soft cap. You're allowed to exceed it. You just have to pay a tax, a luxury tax for it. You pay more money. So the teams that have money don't mind spending more. It's not like a hard rule. It's not like the NFL. It's not like the NHL or the NBA or MLS, right? All of them have hard caps that you can't exceed. And I do think sports are better when there's hard caps. I do not like, and this is my problem with European soccer too, right? Is I do not like that some teams are better just because, they're a little bit older and have, can throw just an unreasonably larger amount of money at their roster. And then they're better. No, you just have more money.
Or they're owned by Saudi oil people.
Or Russian oil people. Shout out Chelsea. Who are, like our two teams. Like, it's easy for me to complain about this when I've benefited. I've won a Champions League, 2 Champions Leagues from that. But I say I as if I was a member of the team.
They just haven't brought you into the front office yet. Once we get our experience at the Cardinals front office,
I'm just saying I could probably do a better job than Chelsea's front office right now. That's a complete cluster. It would not be hard.
You think Mo's bad?
They're the opposite. Although I'm not going to derail this and make this a Chelsea Football Club podcast, but I could do an hour-long episode about how they've screwed up the whole build. But I don't have time for that.
But you know what, though? At the end of the day, we have 3 professional sports teams here in St. Louis. And they're 3 teams that we can support. Honestly, we have 4. We've got the Battlehawks as well. And the worst part is that we should have a 5th, and we don't, because they obviously took the Rams from us. And mainly that's because Stan Kroenke is an asshole, and, et cetera. So with that, Stan Kroenke, we hate you, and good night, everyone.